Welcome to the live stream here. This is Friday, April 2nd, Good Friday, 2021. The title of this video is Pterodactyl Sightings Worldwide Ropens. And we welcome you. I hope you can participate and be part of this. Feel free to contact me. This is the contact page. It's a very simple form, very few things you need to do with it. And once you've filled out the form and send it to me, then we can communicate directly by email. And then it'll be on the email that we'll be communicating with after that. Here's the URL for my Protect Animal Life channel on YouTube. And we'll be having some chat here. We'll begin with Ropens have long tails. We've been through this before. They have long tails. We're going to talk about bats and how there are some species of bats that have long tails, but they're much, much smaller than any Ropen that's generally reported. So, again, the title, Pterodactyl Sightings Worldwide Ropens. Feel free to participate. There are many species of long-tailed pterosaurs, rhamphorhynchoid type, rhamphorhynchus, or that sort of thing, that have lived in the past. There's who knows how many species there have been in the past. What we have now is generally called a Ropen. It includes the American hammerhead Ropen, seen here with a sketch by Eskin Kuhn in Cuba in 1971. He sketched this just minutes after his sighting, and this is clearly seen in daylight at a close range. And the two were flying at low elevations. He got a really good view of them, and he just concentrated just staring at them so that he could later draw a sketch of them. He's a talented artist, and he was able to do that within minutes after the sighting itself. He went to get the sergeant, the Marines. Too late. They'd already flown away. So he didn't have anybody with him to confirm it, but the sketch is incredible. And feel free to participate in the chat. It usually takes a while before people get on and start talking. So, what do we have? Let's talk about bats. People sometimes say, well, it's like a giant bat. It's like a pterodactyl, but it's like bat-like wings. I get this a lot. Bat-like wings. Well, it means it's not like the feathered wings of birds, especially because some birds, large birds included, you can clearly see the primary feathers, those big feathers near the end of the wings coming out. Bats don't have feathers. Of course, they have very small particles of fur, little hairy filaments of fur. But what we see here is the some species of, looks like flying fox fruit bat. I saw a lot of these in Papua New Guinea during my expedition in the year 2004. But these are much bigger than the bats that have long tails. The long-tailed bats are generally, you can hold them in your palm of your hand and have room for a few more adding on to it, and they still fit in the palm of your hand. Generally, very small bats. The New Zealand long-tailed bat, for example, weighs less than 1 ounce. That's a tiny fraction of a pound. And the Ropens, on the other hand, just are gigantic. They have a wingspan range that, let me show you some estimates that people made over many years that they've sent to me. A wingspan range that goes all the way from a little over 1 foot all the way to 40 feet and 46 feet. Huge range of estimates, and we've gone over this in the past, why there's such a range. But in other words, this incredible range of eyewitness estimates of wingspan in feet, it's incredible range, going some of them over 20 feet, quite a few over 20 feet. Couldn't possibly be from this misidentification of bats. The great majority of these sightings were of long-tailed bats, like we have here. This picture that comes from Eskin Kuhn's sketch, a long tail with a flange at the end. A Ropen is not any kind of bat. It's apparently it's a rhamphorhynchoid pterosaur descendant. You can call it what you will. In that subject, hi, Carl Young. I don't think you've been here before, have you, Carl? I don't recall your name. I saw one in Ohio in 2015. Thank you for telling us. I've received so many sighting reports from Ohio over the years. Matter of fact, just like 10, 12 years ago, that was one of the top states in sightings. More like 15 years ago when I was still investigating this, but it was early. So many sighting reports from Ohio. Now we have a lot of them coming in from North Carolina and other states too, California and Texas, of course. And it was 20 feet or more. Is that wingspan from wingtip to wingtip, Carl? I presume you mean from one end of one wing to the end of the other. 20 feet is not unusual. It sounds impossible, of course, with our modern Western society. And Carl says, when I saw it, my first thought was I had seen a dragon, and you're not alone, Carl. Many people have used that word dragon. In fact, my associates and I believe that, and apparently the wingspan, wingtip to wingtip, 20 feet, that's not unusual. It is big. That's a big one, but some of them are bigger than that. Of course, we understand there's always a possibility of some type of error in estimating when you see something flying. That's natural. But one thing skeptics might not realize, and if we want to be scientific and objective, I am a scientist. I'll tell you, we need to be objective. We need to look at the possibilities on both sides. If a person gives an estimate and it seems really big, like it's much too big to be a bird, be careful about your own personal bias if you're a skeptic or a critic. Excuse me. Because in the terms of potential mistake in estimating, it can be either way, bigger or smaller than actual, the estimate could be bigger or smaller than the actual size. The skeptics might not realize that, but we're dealing with real creatures that are not birds or bats. And Carl says it was dark, leathery brown. Okay. This is a common description. Leathery is a word I hear a lot. It doesn't necessarily mean there's no hair. For example, technically, leathery is, you could say, well, like the hide of a cow or bull or something like that. Actually, bovine animals have hair. They have small hair, but just we don't notice it from a distance. In fact, can you see the hair on my arm here? Guess what? From a distance of about 100 feet, it would look like my arm is hairless, a leathery kind of a texture. It's just like skin, like I don't know, leathery would be the word. My age, it is leathery, but I mean for young people, maybe not. But even though we have hair on the arms, from a distance you don't notice hair, not in humans on the arm. And on the top of the head, for me, you don't notice that well either, but a few decades ago, half a century ago, I had a lot more hair on the top of my head. But the point is that when one of the skeptics that has a web page, oh good, Carl says I studied cryptozoology. Great, so glad you're here, Carl. We'll be having other people come too. So glad that you got right on this. And this, I'm not going to mention the name of this YouTube page, this YouTube video, it's just terrible mistakes. Much of it is about me, and I just stopped. I didn't watch it to the end. It's just nonsense. It's thickening. They say all kinds of things about what I'm thinking and feeling in my religion, and just a lot of it's just nonsense. A lot of it is distorted, and it's just don't recommend it. But one of the things they mention on this YouTube video that I won't mention the name of, that's the one, is that they can't be real animals because pterosaurs of the past, known from fossils, pterosaurs had fur or some type of structure like fur or hair or something like that. So people say leathery, it can't be a pterosaur. That's absolute nonsense for multiple reasons. And now we have, Carl says, I've also seen the Lake Erie monster. Oh, cool. Lake Erie. There's many of these lakes in North America that have reports of strange creatures in the lakes. I know some of them. And I was 30 feet from the creature. Yeah, I believe cryptozoologists study different specialties sometimes, and I've been to Loch Ness myself. I haven't seen anything there, but just like an American tourist, I wanted to see Loch Ness, and at least I could try. And nothing unusual when I was there. But I've seen one other lake in Texas that possibly is reported to have some type of a strange animal in it too. But I specialize in modern pterosaurs or apparent modern pterosaurs. I had to distinguish when I say apparent modern pterosaur. If you want to find any of my web pages, just put apparent pterosaur within quotes and do a Google search or other search engine, and you'll find probably all the first page results of Google will be one of my web pages, possibly one of my videos, but because I want to be scientific and objective, so if I'm dealing with a particular sighting, I often use the phrase apparent pterosaur. That doesn't mean I have doubts. I think there's something wrong with the sighting report or anything like that. It's just I want to be objective and let people know that I don't specialize in trying to be absolutely sure about one particular sighting. I'm dealing with a broad range of sightings worldwide. So I want to be objective, and so I use that phrase sometime. Okay. Now let's go over here. Wingspan estimates. You see 20 feet is not that unusual. These are estimates where I've recorded the more credible ones up until the end of the year 2012. And early in 2013, I sorted through, analyzed them, put together the data, and here are the reports here for the wingspan estimates in feet. So, again, this is the title of the video, Pterodactyl Sightings, Worldwide Ropens. The Ropen is the most common type that my associates and I know about from eyewitness reports that are sent to us. They have long tails. They're generally nocturnal, though people do see them occasionally in daylight. Are they rare? They're definitely not common. Obviously, they would have been discovered long, long ago if they were common anywhere, like in North America, which we have them in North America, in Ohio. It's easier to name the states that we don't have sightings reports. So many states in the United States. Offhand, I don't think we have a direct report from an eyewitness in North Dakota or South Dakota. But pretty much almost all the other states in the United States, other than Alaska, I have direct eyewitness accounts sent to me from the eyewitness himself or herself. So please feel free to participate. We have Carl Young here. And again, emphasize that bats, sometimes a person will have a pterosaur sighting, which is an actual pterosaur, and he or she will be impressed that it's a bat-like appearance in general, but then they'll realize no bat is that big, or it just has a long, skinny tail. What bat has a long, skinny tail? And again, what we're looking at here is, the best I can see here, is a type of flying fox fruit bat, common in some areas of the world, in certain areas of Africa and the Southwest Pacific, in some areas of Australia, and in Papua New Guinea, where I led an expedition in 2004. So they're just a huge difference. The largest wingspans of flying fox would probably be generally less than 5 feet. But again, you see the estimates here. 5 feet is really on the low end of the scale for the eyewitness estimates of modern pterosaurs. Way down. It's the average median would be way up here on the 13 feet range, somewhere in there. Now, I should say with statistics, none of these particular numbers here with the estimates of wingspan in feet, none of them are outliers. Outliers meaning they're kind of outside the normal range that would be expected. There are no outliers. 46 and 40 and 35, they just fit right perfectly there. 1.3, it all fits. It's very even in range there. Okay, okay, great. I think might have missed something. Let me go up here to see if I've missed some comment here. Nathan Longpray, thanks for coming back, Nathan. You've been here for sure. I'm sure I recognize your name. It may have been more than a week, though. I've heard of a pterosaur sighting in Alaska. There was a YouTube video about it. I've heard about a couple sightings, maybe one, but it's hard to say because sometimes there'll be a sighting in Alaska that could be just a very large bird. But I think there's at least one of the sightings is a pterosaur appearance. Okay, and Carl says, I was flying about 100 feet above the ground and flying very forcefully as if it were tired. I think you mean it was flying above 100 feet, don't you, Carl? Yeah, I think it's just a typo. Flying about 100 feet above the ground and flying very forcefully as if it were tired. It had double-jointed wings like a bat. And I've got that description before. We have something like that in Arkansas with that type of, the way it's flying, you can see a joint in the middle of the wing that moves differently. Birds do not have that as far as I know. I don't know of any bird that has that kind of a wing flapping. It had a north toward Lake Erie and probably into Canada. Interesting. Now, Carl, did you mention when this was? Was it recently? I could look back. Let me look to see if you mentioned that here. 2015. Thank you. 2015. Do you remember what time of year that was, Carl? It had a long tail like a snake. Okay. In other words, a skinny tail. Now, feel free to just describe anything you like about the tail. Yeah, 2015, I saw it there. Was the tail like anything unusual when it was flying in the way that it moved or the way it was held in flight? Straight, curved, wobbly, bent in some way or straight? Just feel free to let us know the details of about that. Double-jointed wings like a bat. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. When I've observed bats, it's not my specialty, but when I've observed them, the flowing flapping is so fast, I just can't tell anything about how exactly the wings move. It's just such a fast flapping. And the largest ones are the flying fox fruit bat, which we have. Oops, that's not it. Where is it anyway? Here it is. That's here. This flying fox fruit bat. Now, it came to a tiny pointed tail, okay? In other words, when you're looking at it, the tail seemed to come to a point. Is that what you saw, Carl? Interesting. I have a comment on that if I understand. So the tail looked like it came to a point. And what angle was this? You say it was about 100 feet above the ground. Was it about 100 feet flying about above a point of the ground, which is about 100 feet away from you? In other words, was it a 45-degree angle, or was it okay, a pointed tail? Interesting. Was it a kind of a 45-degree angle that you're looking at it, or was it more like it was more than 100 feet away horizontally? That can make a difference in certain things. Also, of course, the angle that it was flying in relation to you. Was it flying mostly toward you, away from you, or just kind of passing you, perpendicular when it got to a certain point? Okay. So yeah, we have many sightings of Ropens. They're so common. At one time, years ago, I'd accumulated data on the number of sightings that had a clear indication of long tail, and those that did not indicate it, that indicated something other than long tail, either no tail or a short tail. And the ratio was huge. It's like about 19-1 in favor of 19-1 in favor of long tails. That is a huge difference. Carl says I saw it from the back. Okay. So in other words, Carl, it was flying mostly away from you, and you got kind of that sharp angle from flying away from you. That could shed some light on certain things of what was seen when you were there. The rear view on my left side, about a mile away. Oh, a mile away. Wow, that is the distance. But it was very large. Those who are just getting here understand that the sighting that Carl had in Ohio in 2015 was of a flying creature, dragon-like, pterosaur-like flying creature. I believe it was a Ropen. I have no doubt, but I'm trying to be objective. Flying creature that was about 100 feet above the ground. Is that right? Did I recall that right, Carl? And it's about a mile away, but being 20 feet in wingspan, you can see something that was that big. You can see airplanes a mile away, and airplanes are not too much bigger than that. And and you answered yes, and I forgot my question. Okay. Yeah, sorry. I've been just asking questions left and right. But anyway, thanks so much for telling us about that. It was the situation. I'll tell you my opinion, and I can change it if you don't mind. I'm open to thinking differently and looking at this differently. But since it was flying mostly away from you, which I think is one of the questions I asked, and I think you answered yes on that, mostly away from you, and being so far away compared to 100 feet, it was much, much further away horizontally over the ground than 100 feet. It's like close to a mile, which is way over that distance. But if it was flying 100 feet high above the ground, no, it had claws on its feet. Yeah, I've got that description a lot. Yeah. And let me just quickly go back here to review what was said about this sighting. About a mile away. Oh, you said that before. I didn't catch that. Sorry. I didn't catch. Oh, wait a minute. This isn't. No, you didn't say that before. You just said that. Okay, get back to the original one. I saw one in Ohio. That's 20 feet wingspan. Looked like a dragon. It's dark leathery brown. Okay, yeah. It was flying about 100 feet above the ground and flying very forcefully. 100 feet. Now let's get back to this now. 100 feet above the ground, and it's 20 feet wingspan. That's huge. Some airplanes are just, less than 40 feet in wingspan, the small private planes. 20 feet is huge. Huge. And from a mile away, you can see it. You can see details on that. And perhaps also, maybe we should check with your Carl to see if it's possible you might have made a mistake in the distance away, because some people don't realize exactly what a mile is, especially if it's something up in the air. Anyway, be that as it may, it's much further away from you horizontally than it was above the ground. And it was flying away from you quite a bit, mostly at that angle. So the situation is with the Ropen, and let me tell you about the Ropen. I've had hundreds of sighting reports I've had over the last 17 and a half years. So generally, and I don't know if this is always the case, but generally a Ropen has a tail flange that is horizontal, not vertical like you see in pictures or what some paleontologists just assume it was. It's horizontal. And it's clear the eyewitnesses have said that. But some perspectives are more difficult to tell. I flew over the Lodi Mall. Okay. Maybe we can ask, what city is that, Carl? I'm curious. Excuse me. Got post-nasal drip. I'm not really sick. I'm not sick. Got both my shots for COVID-19. But let's see the Lodi, or Lodi, how do you pronounce that? Mall. And what happens is, with that angle you have of looking at it in the distance and it's flying away from you, you wouldn't probably notice a tail flange at the end of the tail. Lodi, is that Lodi or Lodi, Ohio? I bet. I'll find out later. Don't worry. It's Lodi. So that's what wide gauge says. Carl said Lodi, Ohio, in Ashland County. Great. Ashland, that sounds familiar. I think I've gotten at least one other sighting from that area of Ohio. Sounds very familiar to me. So what happens is, at that angle and flying away from you, you wouldn't be able to, I don't think you would be able to see a tail flange, even though it's there, because it's just a very poor perspective to see that structure in the tail. If it's right over you, oh boy, you see it very clearly. It's, some people call it triangular shape, diamond shape, spade shape even. And in Ohio, I get a lot of reports of ball shape. I don't know why people in Ohio would use the word ball or describe it. I don't know, but I get a lot of those words, word ball, a lot in Ohio. Ashland County has a website about pterosaur sightings. Oh, that's interesting to me. You got my attention, Carl. Whoa. Ashland, let me write this down. Ashland. Ashland County, Ohio. Web page. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah. Maybe I can just kind of come up with some things off the top of my head. It's not much on the top of my head, so that might not work. But I recall not a direct report that I received from the eyewitness, but a long time ago, like when I was first starting this in around the year 2003, 2004, when I first began this investigation, and before I'd written any books about living pterosaurs, I did notice online a report of a minister that was driving, I don't remember what time of day or night it was. He was driving somewhere out in the country, somewhere in Ohio, and he had a really good sighting of a pterodactyl, and he reported that, and it got online. I was fascinated by that. Okay, thank you for joining us, Mac, Viking Genetics. We'll call you Mac. Do you think some sightings are misidentified animals? Well, that's a good question. We've gone over that a lot in previous live stream videos here on this channel. We can talk about it, of course, again. In general, they're not misidentifications if they get all the way to me. In other words, when people have a sighting of something that strikes them as being like a pterosaur, to get to that part where they actually see it and they actually get to send me an email, sometimes a phone call, that's rare, send me an email. There's a lot of things that can go on between those two things that can discourage from not ever contacting me. In other words, for every sighting report I receive from an eyewitness, there may be huge numbers of people that never contact me that had a similar sighting. Okay, Carl says there was a video posted of a pterosaur sightings around the same time on YouTube. Yeah. And about Mac's thing about misidentified animals, in general, no. If they get to all the stage where somebody actually contacts me, it's because they just can't figure out any kind of bird that it can be or any kind of bat that it could be. They've already just come to that conclusion before they get to me, and when they report it to me, I can see details generally that just don't make sense within a misidentification. Lottie's good distance from Lake Erie, 18 miles maybe, and it's actually in Medina County. I just looked it up. Okay. Well, we'll see. I'll make a note of that. Lottie, maybe Medina County. Okay. I'll look them up later. Yes, that's good to know, wide gauge. Thank you. And we'll get into that, look into that details. But generally, it's, for one thing, we've gone into this before, so excuse me if you've seen this before in a previous live stream that I've done here. Usually it's on late Saturday afternoons, mountain time in the United States. But the wingspans here are the estimates up to the end of the year 2012. The more credible sightings reports. These dozens of estimates don't make sense in terms of misidentified birds like blue herons or cranes. No, they make no sense in terms of that kind of misidentification. It's definitely not bat. There's no bat that has a wingspan that can be anywhere near most of these estimates. So let's get back to the chat here. So in general, yeah, they're not misidentifications. Now, there are exceptions that come up once in a while, and I'll tell you, there was a YouTube video that came up years ago, and you can still find it. So I'm pretty sure it's still on YouTube, about a Ropen, so it's a Ropen sighting of this flying creature over this beach area. I'll tell you offhand what I remember about that. And there may be another version that somebody took that same thing and made another video of it, but the same footage, of this flying creature. It's a frigate bird. I've seen frigate birds in the wild. I've videotaped them. I know frigate birds. It was a frigate bird that was in the video. And this Spanish accent, guy with a Spanish accent says, there's something similar to a Spanish accent. So it says, is it Ropen, and he's wondering if it's Ropen. No, it's a frigate bird. And the problem is with that, at least one version of that video, not necessarily all the versions, that one particular version, it shows some details on the coast, the beach scene. There's a car there, and there's some people there that are not from Papua New Guinea, or like Westerners, light-skinned people. But the video says this is, went on a vacation to Papua New Guinea. You know how many North Americans, like Americans or Mexicans, go on a vacation to Papua New Guinea, north of Australia? You can count them on your fingers of one hand and have, a few fingers left over in general. People don't go there on vacation. And the scene that shows, they're very suspicious. It looks like a barren kind of beach scene somewhere in west coast of Mexico. And there's a car there, which you generally don't see in Papua New Guinea. There's no dark-skinned natives. There's a telephone pole. The beach. I've been to Papua New Guinea. I've gone on an expedition there. I've led an expedition there. It did not look anything remotely like a beach scene in Papua New Guinea, which is a jungle area, and this is just a barren landscape. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, it's possible to mistake a frigate bird and think you saw a pterosaur. Sure, that's possible. Even possibly a Ropen, though the tails are different. But there's some major differences. When people report a long neck, for example, the frigate bird in general, they're oceanic. They just are generally found over the ocean, occasionally coming in a little bit into the beach area, like in the Caribbean where I videotaped frigate birds. But they don't have the same tail as the Ropen with a clear flange thing at the end of the tail. They have a forked tail generally. And they don't seem to have a neck. Frigate bird looks like it doesn't have a neck. Ropen has a long neck, yeah, at least in general. There may be exceptions with one or more species, but in general they have a long neck. You can see, for example, get over here to this sketch here, and you can clearly see there's a neck there. And you see a head crest, a structure that's not anything remotely like a frigate bird. No, it's not. But I do know one case, and let's get back to the chat. I know of one case for Mac here. Thank you for asking this, Mac. You know, one case at least where a person, I think it was in Australia, and he was contacting people. He thought he saw a pterosaur, and then later he recanted, said, no, it was a frigate bird. I accept that. I understand. I can understand that kind of thing, of course. You can't see the feathers very well on the frigate birds. It looks like a dark Ropen to some people, but there's huge differences. And of course, the frigate bird, like many other birds, has a particular size. It's nowhere near this range of like 16, 17, 18, 20 feet wingspan, 22, 25, 30-foot wingspan. It's nowhere remotely like that. And the thing to keep in mind with misidentifications in general. Now, there are exceptions. I told you of an exception in Australia. Apparently somebody did make that mistake, but that's exceptional. I kept statistics just in recent years about sightings in the United States, and in terms of human population ratio and with sighting reports that I've received of apparent modern pterosaurs, some of the biggest sighting report states are Utah and Kansas. Now, why in the world would any oceanic bird fly way over into Utah and Kansas? It's just not. It's not something really that you can look at it, but it's just not reasonable. Wide gauge, I would think most misidentifications would be those misidentified pterosaur as a crane, not the reverse. Yeah, in fact, that's a good point, wide gauge, and that I believe that does happen, and I think you're perfectly correct. That's why I don't get hundreds of sightings every week, because people assume, I must have been something wrong with my vision, and it was just a crane or a heron. No, they never contact me. Yeah, that's a good point. It's generally a misidentification. The reverse, people see a pterosaur and they assume that it's something common, because no one is actually expecting to lay eyes on a prehistoric creature. Precisely. And wide gauge made an excellent point here. Excellent. It's exactly what happens, I'm sure. And we've gone into this thing about how many Americans have seen a modern pterosaur, a good sighting. And it has to be at least 300,000 Americans. Absolutely. 1 in 1,000 in the minimum for the Americans, which, we number 300 plus million in the United States for humans. But all those sightings, because people report to me so many sightings, and then a lot of those persons that report it to me will say, oh, and I know someone else who's seen one. Well, that other person never contacts me, almost never. There are exceptions, but generally they never contact me. So I know there's people out there that I just never communicate with. And wide gauge, it's the last thing anyone expects. And you're absolutely right. Shocking. I mean, I've spent more hours on this in the last 17 and a half years, more hours on my investigation into this type of cryptid, flying cryptid or cryptozoology than any other person on the face of the earth. And if I was to go out sometime on a walk by the river and saw a large pterosaur, I would be shocked. I would be shocked, because it is just shocking for Westerners. It's just the way it is. And Nathan Longpraise is exactly referring to wide gauge's comment. It's very, very unexpected. Nathan Longpree says, if anyone was misidentifying other animals for pterosaurs, they wouldn't all be describing the exact same details. Yeah, there's some variations in details, and there's a number of reasons for that. But generally, certain things kind of line up, with plenty of exceptions, but they start lining up in certain ways. Long tails, no feathers, a horn-like head crest, a flange at the end of the tail. These are not people that are just somehow influenced by their culture. The eyewitnesses that I've contacted directly, who've contacted me, come from 5 continents, many different cultures, different languages, different religious beliefs, different educational experiences, and so on and so on. Just very different people. But they report some similar things quite a bit. And those are the Ropen, long-tailed featherless Ropen, in large sizes often, bigger than common birds. Max says crane and heron could be some mistaken identity in a particular case, if it's just one, but that is not the kind of sighting that will get to me generally. It will not, person will never contact me about it, because they just assume, well, they never even look online for pterodactyl sightings, or look. They don't, of course, they don't know my name. Nobody knows me by name. I'm not on billboards, on advertising people to contact me. I'm not famous. I've been interviewed a couple times for television, but those particular 2 episodes were, I don't believe either of them were ever actually on broadcast on public television in the United States or Canada. And I'm not famous. Why would people contact me unless they were absolutely convinced and it was just so different than a crane or heron that they felt they had to find out somebody they could report it to, and they found me. That's what happens. Okay, Max says, do you think some people overestimate the wingspans? Well, it's possible, but why would they do it, overestimate rather than underestimate? In other words, we have to keep an open mind to be objective scientific, that there is a certain possibility, a certain range of error in estimation, and we shouldn't just think it has to be one direction and not the other. It could be otherwise. For example, just go off some of the reasoning, okay? Let's say a skeptic says, oh, it was just scared, or they're counting this thing, and so it overestimates and give an estimate that's bigger. It was estimated 20-foot wingspan, but it was only 10 feet. Well, first of all, why would somebody be scared? Go back and look at your conjecture. Why would somebody be scared? Well, because it's something very strange, right? If it's something very strange, maybe it is a modern pterosaur. Maybe it is very, very big. And I know one case with a scientist, actually, in Australia, Perth, Australia, in 1997. I'm pretty sure that's the year. He and his wife had a sighting, and the scientist, he estimated the wingspan of this strange-looking creature that was like lizard-like appearance of the texture and so on. And he said it was between 30 feet and 50 feet in wingspan. And he started to feel like, well, he didn't want to say it was like 50 feet because it sounds so incredible. It's just too impossible. But his general scientific objective estimating skills gave him idea it was closer to 50 feet than 30 feet. It's possible a person could just underestimate the wingspan because it seems so impossible that it could actually be what it looks like. And so somebody might underestimate it. But the point is, occasionally a sighting will be where the creature is flying lower elevation. Whitcomb says, of course, once you've seen one personally, you might go around expecting to see more. Yeah, and you might start making misidentifications then, but also you don't know what to look for. Well, the case there, Whitcomb, is that people actually they do know what to look for. They've seen it before, so they know the difference. When you like Eskin Kun who has this wonderful sketch that is drawn of this two Ropens here. This sketch here. Sorry. The sketch here. That sketch was drawn a few minutes after the sighting. Now I have to go back and remember what we're talking about. And he later was communicating with one of his neighbors, and I think he lives in Ohio, in fact. Talking about Ohio, I think Eskin Kun had been living in Ohio somewhere. But he said, this other person says, oh, you just saw a crane, it's just a crane. But Eskin says, he said to me, and probably the other guy too, he says, no, once you've seen a modern pterosaur, there's no mistaking, it's not a crane. And you know the difference very clearly. And Max says, wouldn't a 50-foot flying animal be seen by a lot of people? Sure, but they don't usually come out in the daytime, but that's a rare thing. But what I found is people generally don't report anything to me. They want to forget it. They want to they don't want to think about it anymore. It's just too horrible. They try to forget it generally, and they don't report it to me or my associates. And it's just a rare exception when they do. Or reread, that's what I wrote, they'd know. Oh, okay, I'm sorry I read that wrong, wide gauge. Yeah, people generally know. After they had one sighting, then they know what to look for, how to distinguish it. Yeah, and Nathan Longprey, a lot of people already have seen them. Yeah. Okay, sorry if we were disconnected a short time. I don't know how long that was, but let's see. Big Yak 35, thank you for joining us. I don't think you've been here before, have you? Big Yak 35, they're in southeast San Diego, California. They've been there for years since I was a kid. Not that big, but there is no mistaking them. Yeah, I've had a number of reports from San Diego, a number. Leonard Smith, thank you for joining us, Leonard. What part of the world are these larger creatures seen? I have to give you the straight answer to this, Leonard. They're seen all over the world. They're not confined to any particular place. They're just nocturnal, and they're uncommon, if not rare. They're just seen all over the world, even the large ones. Max says, so if a lot of people have seen them, why are they still considered extinct? Well, they're not. My associates and I and the eyewitnesses we interview, we're perfectly satisfied they're not extinct, but this is just particular types. The vast majority of pterosaurs in general are surely extinct, or we would be having them in zoos. People would have them in zoos if they were common with many, many different species. There wouldn't be anything surprising. People wouldn't think of them being extinct, but they have to be a relatively very few species left that are still alive. Relatively very few. Big Yak 35, seen them, and my mom and aunt have seen one that is always behind her house in the storm drain. Yeah, Southern California have a lot of sightings near storm channels. You could call it a storm drain. Storm channels, that's where they travel at night to navigate. And I have other videos about this in Los Angeles, dragons flying through the storm channels at night. And Nathan says, scientists won't accept the possibility of their existence, so they don't even investigate. That's true. Very good point, Nathan. They don't investigate in general, though there are some scientists who do. I'm one of them. I'm an exception. But generally, there's some reasons for that, and we need to get on with. There are a lot of comments here. Thank you for joining us. Anybody who's coming on right now. Wide gauge. Ken Gentry gave an interesting interview discussing historic pterosaurs over in the Ropen Network channel. Interview was uploaded last year sometime. I've been binge watching the uploads. Oh, cool. Ken Gentry. That sounds familiar. And Max says, so everybody has sightings of pterosaurs except for scientists? No, I'm a scientist. I haven't seen one clear sighting anyway. I haven't had a good sighting. But I know a scientist who has in Australia. And I know a biologist who used to be a biology professor who had a wonderful sighting in Papua New Guinea just a few years ago. I say a few years ago, but it was in the year 2015, actually, not that recently. Leonard Smith, I believe that it's only a matter of time before somebody submits a relatively clear video. Yes. Even then, although that might not be enough, I really want somebody to be able to get a safe capture of live when in a situation where it can be taken to a zoo, which is a lot more difficult than that sounds. It's a big challenge, much more difficult. But we have a lot of poor video. I mean, a lot, I should say. We have a number of cases of video footage that are not good. They're very poor, and very good sighting reports from the human eye. And Nathan says, if a scientist sees a pterosaur, they probably will not tell anybody because they have their reputation to worry about. Excellent point, Nathan. A person could lose their job, be fired for a number of reasons, including incompetence, insanity, this idea of universal extinctions of all species of dinosaurs and pterosaurs is ingrained into our culture. And the concept is just too generalized. The problem is people always refer to like dinosaur or pterosaurs or dinosaurs in a general sense, as a general, but there are a number of species of these kind of animals that lived in the past is just beyond our knowledge. It's way beyond anything we can imagine. Who knows how many types of pterosaurs have lived in the past? Most of them probably extinct. Who knows? There are a few that are still living, and they're generally nocturnal, uncommon if not rare. And I can't really give any opinion on details of that. It's just way too early. I'm much too ignorant on that. I should say I have the advantage that nobody else has in terms of years ago I passed 10,000 hours for the amount of time I devoted to this investigation in cryptozoology, living pterosaur investigation. As far as I know, no other person in the world has that much time to spend on it. Because I've never been a professor, so I don't have to worry about getting fired. And Max says, if they discovered an extinct animal, I'm sure their reputation would be historic. Theoretically, but how in the world are they going to deal with it? How is it going to happen without people thinking they're absolutely crazy? How is that going to happen? Who wouldn't want to be the first to discover a living fossil? But what is discovery? I mean, my perspective, they're discovered. The Ropen is a real live Ropen pterosaur, but it's seen in the context of cryptozoology, not in terms of biology, because we don't have a specimen to look at in the laboratory, recently deceased specimen, or one to watch in the zoo, or one that where a professional wildlife photographer has recorded in video details about the life of it. And that's what we really need, first of all. So discovery is a matter of different stages, and we're really in a kind of a, not at the beginning, but we're certainly a long way from the end of discovery. We're closer to the beginning than the end. And Big Yak 35, hey Mac, camp out at Greenwood Mortuary. You'll see one if you get lucky. As a kid, I played in the cemetery catching tree frogs and crawfish guppies and different things, and there are parts where the... That's interesting, Big Yak 35. You had a sighting? Greenwood Mortuary, where is that? It's in the United States, I presume. Wide gauge. Science community isn't too tolerant of pterosaurs. If a biologist comment on one of their videos is an indication back last year. And then Big Yak 30. Sewer Creeks runs that is completely secluded, where you can see that they're comfortable because no people go in there. Go to San Diego. Well, I believe you. I used to live in Southern California. I'm too far away to visit easily now. Wide gauge, sure, they profess to be open-minded, but sure seem awfully dismissive of what come at all. Well, yeah, some of them dismiss me, but generally we need to understand scientists in general, the vast majority of them are totally silent. They say nothing about it. the vast majority of them probably have no idea of what's involved with these sightings, so they don't know. They don't go to YouTube to look for modern pterosaurs. They just assume it's nonsense, so they wouldn't even look for it. And some of the videos are nonsense, I have to say. Some of the videos on YouTube that show are computer animated, and the hoaxes. There's so many of those, I'm afraid. Big Yak in Southeast San Diego and Imperial Avenue. I could actually do a whole live stream starting out with just San Diego sightings. We've got sightings there. They're fascinating, big ones. Whoa. Yeah, we could do that. Let me make a note of San Diego live stream. We could do that if people would like to see a live stream that concentrates more on San Diego. We have a live stream already that's concentrated on Los Angeles. You want to go back, it's still on YouTube. It's a recorded that live stream that's about, I think it's called, is it Dragons in Los Angeles or something like that? Anyway, a Big Yak said, this is cool because when my mom and aunt saw the one, I told them what I saw. Then they said, yeah, that's what we saw. Yeah, Imperial Avenue. Let me make a note of that. Big Yak 35, Imperial Avenue. That's in the city of San Diego itself, or is that just the general area in the southeast of it? Let me know if I can call my aunt. Sure. Super. Yeah, contact your aunt. I'd be delighted. If she wants to send me an email or anything, I'd be delighted. Even a phone call if she can find my phone number. They're real. Yeah, they are real. They're real animals. And they're from this world, incidentally. I know I've gone to this before. They're not some kind of animal that's come through a time dimension, time travel, or anything like that. They're from this world, and they act and interact in this world. They're animals. And there's some really weird animals that people just know perfectly clearly they belong to this world. Yes, in the city. Okay. I'll look that up sometime, Imperial Avenue. Thank you very much for that. And Big Maxim, Big Yak, are you sure you didn't mistake them for another bird? Oh, between 39th and 47th. Thank you. I'll get that written down, this precise location here. And so, so Mac is asking Big Yak, are you sure you didn't mistake them for another bird? Well, Big Yak maybe describe exactly what he saw. Okay, Big Yak 35, you want to tell us, is it kind of like what it was like, what your sighting was like? And we'll be delighted to hear the details. Generally, they're not misidentifications. Not at all. We have blue herons and they have feathers. Yeah, you can see the feathers in blue herons. I've showed pictures, at least one picture of blue heron before in one of these live streams. It's obvious. She shows the, you know, how the feathers come out like this. And yeah, obviously they're feathers, primary feathers. What I have seen have slick gray skin. It almost looked oily skin. I have occasionally got something like that in the description too. Maybe you saw a bat. Well, bats are kind of small. San Diego. Some of the wingspans of the ones that San Diego are like over 20 feet wingspan. Was it wet? Yeah, well. Bats in San Diego would not be anything remotely the size of some of the reports we have from San Diego. There are no native fruit bats, like flying fox fruit bats, anywhere in that part of the world. They're just not native to the Southern California. Not a 5-foot tall bat. Yeah, that's a good point. If it's 5 feet tall when it's standing up, it's obviously not any kind of bat. Nothing remotely like even the flying fox fruit bat, which has a wingspan of over 4 feet sometimes. It wouldn't look anything remotely like 5 foot tall, anything remotely like that when it was standing. I mean, they generally don't stand anyway. They hang upside down. It looked slick. Thank you so much for telling about this sighting. Fascinating. We don't have bats in southeast San Diego. Yeah, well, if you do, they're tiny little things that you wouldn't notice. Common bats in North America. Yeah, flying fox bats are huge, true, but they're not native of that part of the world in San Diego. That have crest? Oh, wide gauge gave us a good question. A crest meaning something in the back of the head. Coming out in the back of the head. Oven Mitts just saw Godzilla vs. King Kong, modern day pterodactyls in there. Interesting, they throw the inner Earth reality in there too. Yeah, there's lots of movies and things that show that. Big Yak, there are small ones in outlying areas of county. Why, you're sorry I'm leading the witness here, but I'm curious. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, me too. Fascinating. Big Yak 35 like mouse-sized bats. Oh, yes, very common-sized bat in many areas of the world. And probably, I assume, I don't know why they wouldn't be in San Diego, but they would be like something you could hold in your hand, you know. Something that'd be like right in the palm of your hand, probably. That would be more common. Yes, it had a protrusion out the back of the head, pointy, yeah. Can we go here to something, Big Yak 35, where you can see this picture here, there, or this one, perhaps? Is it like that? This is from Cuba. Very long, horn-like head crest here. That is incredible. It's nothing remotely like anything a bird or bat has that I can think of offhand. Nothing remotely like that. Okay. Yeah, it's one of the characteristics of the larger Ropens. Now, the smaller ones, like the adolescents, the baby ones, the Ropens, they don't have that long head crest, probably because it grows over their lifespan. And the scientists know of some pterosaurs who apparently do have a growth of the head crest during the lifespan of the animal. That's, you know, not well known in many different pterosaurs, but there's a little bit known about that. Yes, that picture. Okay, good. That's a Ropen head crest. Any sign of teeth? Oh, that's an excellent question, wide gauge. Yeah. I don't want to lead that. This is true, but yeah, we were fascinated by this. Big Yak 35, we were very interested. So let us, did you see any teeth? But there are not huge 20-foot wingspan. No, maybe the area I'm talking about is a nursery area. Yeah, they could be younger ones, but yeah. Still, if it was standing, 5 feet tall standing, it's not small, not a bat. I was not that close. That's a good point, Big Yak 35. To see the teeth, generally you need two things. You need to have the mouth open, the Ropen mouth open, and you need to be close enough to see that. Now, Patty Carson was that close. When she was there, she was close enough. You notice the teeth in this picture. She was close enough to this, what she called pterodactyl later, because they didn't have the word Ropen known in the United States at this time. She called it a pterodactyl. And she clearly saw the many small teeth in the animal. Yeah, but you have to be kind of close. She was close. Yeah, you got to be close to be able to see the teeth. Well, we have different sighting reports that indicate presence of teeth in, I don't remember if it's Louisiana or Mississippi. I lived in both those states, and I got a report from that area where it was clearly seen the teeth of the animal, and also somewhere in the area of northern Wisconsin, but I'm not positive it was that state or that's part of the country. Anyway, I did see the teeth clearly, and it's more than one eyewitness there. Big Yak, you're saying there are 5 feet tall, flying animals in southeast San Diego. I think that's what he said. Where are the pictures and videos? Well, yeah, it'd be nice if they get some photos and videos. What do you think, Big Yak? Would you like to go back there and try to photograph them and get some video? You have to be careful because some of these can be dangerous and you don't want to take a risk of your life or your health. We have mentioned this other times that sometimes it can be dangerous. You have to be careful. Big Yak, but I never felt scared. I thought the one behind my aunt's house lived under the underpass. All these areas are heavily vegetated. Be kind of careful there, because some of these, at least one species has a capacity to emit a vapor or mist out of its mouth, which you don't want to inhale that. It's very bad. Don't inhale that stuff. It's to be dangerous. I was a kid. This was in the late 1980s. We didn't see teeth in our sighting either. I would love to. I never felt scared by them. Well, yeah, I still had to be careful not to get too close. You try to videotape them, photograph them from a distance, especially videotaping. If you can hold your camera steady and hold yourself steady, and just click the record for video and just let them do the moving and make the motion, and not your camera. I used to be a professional camera operator. And Max says, did you watch Jurassic Park before you saw them? Well, I don't know what difference that makes. We could get into that if you're thinking about some influence that it would have. Wide gauge, late 80s. Okay, no cell phones then. Yeah, that's true. Wide gauge makes a good point. But generally, in a sighting in general, now, even in modern times, recent years, when people have cell phones, if you see in the United States, for example, if you see an obvious modern pterosaur, you will not think about getting out your cell phone. I guarantee it. I've been working on this for years, and it just doesn't happen. People will be in shock. It will be like this. You're in shock. And then when it flies out of the way, you think, oh, I'll get my camera. But you have to get your camera out, turn it on, point it, and the animal's long gone. That happens over and over and over and over. That's the way it is. Big Yak says this was in the 1984 and 1989. Okay. Yeah. Big Yak saw it as a kid, so maybe it was his imagination. Well, no, I wouldn't say that. Many children see things that are really there. Generally, they do. It's not common for a child to imagine something and, after growing up, report it as an adult, report it as a real encounter. Generally, people, they grow up and they realize imagination is what it is, and they don't keep believing in something they imagined as a child. That's not common. Not at all. Okay, and he says, but my mom and aunt saw one in the mid-1990s. Okay, yeah. Leonard Smith, Mac, there have been literally thousands of modern sightings all over the world. That's true. Absolutely. Big Yak, not at all. I know animals, yeah. Yeah. And generally, when people have a sighting, it's not from imagination. When they contact me, or one of my associates, the contact is just not because of imagining it. One of the reasons we know is quite a good percentage, possibly in the neighborhood 50% of sightings are by more than one eyewitness. We have two eyewitnesses or more. Generally, it's not makes sense to say that one person imagined seeing a pterodactyl and then the other person kind of, caught the imagination disease from the other eyewitness. It's not it makes sense that two people would imagine the same thing. It makes no sense. And Max says, I know that, Leonard, but if you got thousands of sightings and no pictures, what does that tell you? It tells you for a lot of things. So one thing, many people in the world don't have cameras at all, and I sample Papua New Guinea. And also, you have, say you no pictures. What do you mean no pictures? Why do you think there are no pictures? Have you never looked for pictures? Because really, there are photographs of modern pterosaurs. There's no doubt about that. You have to be careful, though, because hoaxes can come in. But yeah, I've seen video footage of living pterosaurs. I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever. In that case of the 2015 expedition on New Britain Island in Papua New Guinea, led by the two Americans, Peter Beach and Milt Marcy, they videotaped a modern pterosaur. And Peter Beach is a biology professor, used to teach biology at a small college. I could understand if I said I saw unicorns and I thought I did as a kid, then I saw they were goats. That's a city put in the graveyard to eat weeds for the prevention. Well, that's kind of like not reasonable because we're not really talking about unicorns, and that's not what we're dealing with. And Leonard Smith says, it tells me that they are very rare and that there are very few second sightings. These people aren't expecting to see them. That's true, Leonard. Yeah. Where are the living pterosaur pictures? I can't find any. Well, we've dealt with it before, and in other live streams, I can show it again if you want. I don't have it prepared for tonight, but I'll get photos. I'll show you some photos if you like, some potentials, and video footage if you like. And then, so Big Yak says, so I know what I saw. There are lots of things on this planet unspoken of that I think scientists know about. And I know about it, and I'm a scientist. I've written a scientific paper on modern pterosaurs. But people are set in their ways. Jesse B., 4 of us saw one at the same time. We were too shocked at what we saw. That's common, being absolutely in shock. Mark says Bigfoots are rare too, but they got video recordings of them. Yeah, I believe one of the video recordings, the famous one, the old one, I believe that's a Bigfoot. Yeah. Big Yak 35. I'm just talking to Mac about being mistaken about what I saw. Okay. Yeah, we know. Okay, Big Yak 35. I've read your paper. Is that the scientific paper? It's in. It's called Reports of Living Pterosaurs in the Southwest Pacific. That's the one scientific paper I wrote. Read. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, the title of it is Reports of Living Pterosaurs in the Southwest Pacific. That was published in a peer-reviewed Journal of Science. Oh, it's been quite a few years ago now. Quite a few years. In the neighborhood of the year 2007, something like that. It's not, I can't be sure. It's just way back then. Yeah, okay, great. It's not that easy to find, but I'm glad you got that. And it dealt with pretty much entirely, almost entirely, my expedition in the year 2014 in Umboy Island in Papua New Guinea, and it dealt with a number of things. We could have that in detail on a future live stream if you'd like. Sure, why not? Let me make a note of that too. We should have a live stream that shows scientific papers, and I can show 3 of them, reporting about living pterosaurs. Some scientists have no doubt that pterosaurs are not all extinct. Some of them are alive. And we have these 3 scientific papers. Let me make a note, because I think we should have a live stream that goes into these 3 scientific papers, including mine. There are 3 of them. 3 scientific papers. We need to get into that in detail. Okay, Max. Max says, so are pterosaurs scared of people or something? Because even tiny pigeons aren't scared of humans. That's a good question. Mac has brought up something very good that we can deal with here. I'll deal with the general part first, okay? Pterosaurs in general are not especially scared and are not especially easy with humans. It's somewhere in between in general, and there are exceptions with particular, perhaps species, but particular animals and a particular circumstance, particular times. In general, when I'll give you an example, if you want an example. A few years ago in Lakewood, California, which is right next to Long Beach, California. I used to live in Long Beach. That's how I know so much about this. Lakewood, California, in the middle of the day, this lady was in her backyard. She heard this weird sound. She went up and looked right above her. And sitting on the phone line right above her was this dragon pterodactyl-like thing with the end of the tail about 18 feet from her forehead. I mean, this is close. She got to look at that tail, and the wings came out. And I'm like, well, that, what she would call it, dragon pterodactyl, that's the word she used. I call it Ropen. No doubt it was a Ropen. That's what I believe. But it was just sitting there all the time. Her dog was barking and barking. And this is a good-sized dog. I know that dog. I've been there to the backyard. I know the dog, Rex. I know that dog. He's a good size. He was barking and barking at this Ropen that was just right above it, the tree. Apparently the Ropen probably didn't pay attention, was not bothered by it. But as soon as the lady came out and says, "What is going on?" And then that flying creature, the Ropen, just took off, flew off to a nearby tree and buried it into the vegetation of that tree. Just buried itself inside that tree so nobody could see it then. So it was, that particular one was definitely scared of that particular lady. She was just talking so loud. It was scary. But there are exceptions, and we have to be aware. And there are different reasons that there are exceptions about pterosaurs, and are they afraid of people? There is no general answer for all cases or all animals or all situations. It's just, we have to deal with particular ones. And we can get into examples. More than that, if you like, unless somebody has other comments they want to get into. What other cases should we get into? A case in, I remember the Midwestern state. Where was it? Not Ohio. It was in the Midwestern United States. Possibly Wisconsin, up in the northern Midwest. But it was quite a few years ago. And this young man was coming back from fishing, and he heard a tapping noise. And he followed where that was, and it was kind of indentation, not really a cave, nothing like that, but an indentation in the cliff. Enough he saw this weird winged creature there, later just call it pterodactyl or something like that perhaps, saw this thing in there, and it was tapping, its beak was tapping the fish that it had, and it's eating the fish, and the young man started getting a little too close. Later he thought, well, he shouldn't have gotten that close, but the flying creature, the Ropen, I believe it was, saw the man and didn't panic, like was not panicked, but as I understand it, picked up the fish, backed up, and took a little run and took off and flew away. Didn't want to be interrupted. Wasn't necessarily seeming to be scared of the man, just didn't want to be bothered with a human when it was trying to eat. We can get some other examples too. Sometimes a modern pterosaur will actually attack a person. I'll give you extreme examples. And years ago, quite a few years ago in western Oklahoma, and I know we've gone into this before, but maybe some persons here haven't heard about this. Western Oklahoma, a few decades ago. Early in the morning, after the sun came up, this little 4-year-old girl went out to see her brothers and sisters get on the school bus and go to school. She was too young to go to school. So the 4-year-old girl was walking back to the house, and it was attacked by this weird, hairy, flying creature that had teeth in its beak. Tried to grab her. She fell down to the ground and was looking at it all the time as it flew over her and missed her. because she had ducked down to the ground and got down to the ground, and it flew right over her because she was smart enough to do that, and she ran to the house. But that pterosaur was not afraid of that little human. It was going to eat her, I have no doubt. Okay, and the big yak says that makes sense since there is a steady supply of fish in the area I'm describing, and it's heavily planted. Interesting, fish in the steady area. There's yes, some pterosaurs do eat fish. We have a number of reports like that, and indirect and direct of pterosaurs in modern times eating fish. They eat other things too, birds sometimes. Occasionally, unfortunately, they attack humans. And Big Yak says, and the tails were not extra long. Okay. Sense, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, and we have some cases where, let's see, attacks on humans or human pets. The larger Ropens generally not so scared of people, apparently. They'll actually attack people on occasion. We got some books here, just to mention if anyone is interested. I'm not making any money off of this. This is Missing 411, one of the Missing 411 books by David Paulides, and here's another one. Now, the author of these books, and this is only 2 of them, he's written more than this. The author of these books does not present a case for modern pterosaurs. He does not suggest that that's what's happening. But I found, I've gone into analyzing details of the statistics of different things in these, at least one of these books, and it does show a possibility that in some of the missing person cases, they are attacking people, and people are actually taken away. I think they're designed for fishing due to the long jaws. Yeah, probably so, White Cage. Yeah, there are rabbits, yeah, in that area in San Diego. Yeah, I believe that could very well be a prey animal for the modern pterosaurs. Oven Mitts, thank you for joining us. Oven Mitts, I've always thought so. Thank you very much for participating. Jesse B., is it possible some have an inbred fear from being hunted, so they stay away from people? I believe so. Yeah, good point, Jesse B. A good point. Yeah, I believe so. And it's just probably native to, just natural to their, I guess, natural breeding, you know. Modern pterosaurs over many, many centuries, the ones that are more bold with people get killed by people. Yeah, that makes sense. The ones that generally are more timid will be the ones that survive. There is definitely that possibility. That very well could happen, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's the case. But there are exceptions, definitely exceptions. That Big X, I agree. Thanks, love this topic. Thank you, Oven Mitts. You probably just joined, so excuse me, just the title of this particular, and it will be recorded and kept on YouTube after this. It's not just temporary for live streaming, but the title is Pterodactyl Sightings Worldwide Ropens. Here's a contact page if anyone wants to contact me, the forum. Please feel free to do so. I'm Jonathan Whitcomb. This is Friday, Good Friday, April 2nd, 2021. Grateful it's not April 1st, because they gotta get all kinds of problems with April Fool's insinuations, you know. But grateful for all your participation. And I have received hundreds of eyewitness reports just from the United States alone over the last 17 and a half years. And in general, these are not misidentifications. There are exceptions, I know. And there are, statistically speaking, I've done analysis where shows that there cannot be any major influence of hoax contamination of the data. There's not from hoaxes. Max says, I really want to believe, but we are in 2021 and we still don't have concrete evidence of pterosaurs. Well, I think you mean like one in a zoo or really, really good, clear video, well, that's what we're working on. What I need is a nonprofit organization, which I'm just in the early stages of preparing. Once we have a nonprofit organization and we can fund different things, and then we can do a lot more than we can right now. But it takes money to start a nonprofit and other things. And Big Yak, I never felt scared, just shocked, but I think as many years I was in the area, they knew who I was. I spent every day in the area I described. Yeah, the animals will get used to after a while if you're just looking and not hurting them or not bothering them. They'll kind of get used to you, they won't pay attention to you. That's natural. That's animals and birds and other things, they will get used to people. Wide gauge, I hear you, Mac. It's crazy. Yeah, it's weird. Even for me, who's all the time I've spent on this, it's still, it goes contrary to my upbringing and my Western cultural background. Being an American is just shocking, but I have to be realistic and objective and say, this is what I found worldwide with reports. And I have to be scientific. And Oven Myths, if I win the lotto, you're the first donation. Well, thank you. We need just a lot of people to make small donations, really. That's what we need. And we'd have to have the nonprofit started. Really, we need to get a nonprofit, and it's tax deductible, and it's organized in such a way that you can depend on the things being done reasonably, and with a board of directors, doing things correctly and taking proper care of people's donations. I'll volunteer when you start the nonprofit. Great. Well, get in touch with me. And of course, I know your name is not probably Big Yak 35, but whatever your real name is, get in touch with me by email, and I can tell you can help in some way if you'd like to volunteer. And there's a lot of things we would need with volunteers, definitely. Great, White Gauge. I'll donate to super, and be sure to get in touch with me by email, because I am definitely preparing for the nonprofit organization, and there's a lot involved with it. So we very much appreciate it. We need lots of people giving small donations, mainly. Okay, Big Yak, I was not looking for them. I was catching animals for pets. Just saw them with the same one all the time. Yeah, well, that's super, Big Yak. Try to carefully get a reasonable camera, not a very expensive camera, but a reasonable camera that you can carefully, slowly take video in a situation where the animal can be clearly seen, the Ropen or whatever it is, and so that you can get the video well. Same time, Lawrence, please contact me. So, okay, Lawrence, thank you, Lawrence. Yeah, if you can, my contact page here, Lawrence, it's, let me make a note here. This is my contact page. I cannot really give out directly online in live streams my actual email. It's a nightmare what happens when a person does that on a worldwide broadcast like this. Anybody in the world could just get my email and cause all kinds of problems. So I need to contact you through this contact page. You can find me in different ways by looking at my name and just saying, well, Jonathan Whitcomb contact email, something like that, in a search engine. Jonathan Whitcomb is my name, Jonathan, Whitcomb, pterodactyl, flying dinosaur, whatever you want to use in the search. And this is the URL. And you might want to come back to that later. This is being recorded for permanent recording on the YouTube. I live in Las Vegas now. Okay, great. I understand. So this is Big Yak 35. Okay, I understand. You can't get to San Diego easily. Yeah. Well, that's super. But anybody else that anybody want to recommend to this page to get people to come here, just say, look at this Saturday afternoon and evenings, all this discussion about modern pterosaurs, I'm going to try to do it every single Friday afternoon, starting about 4:30 p.m. in the evening, Utah time, which is Mountain Time. So that would be 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and Central Time it would be 3:30 p.m. California Pacific Time. Sometimes I'm a little late, and sometimes I'm a little early, but generally it lasts for at least an hour, and often I hope to get it up to 2 hours, so we can cover a lot of things. 777 subscribers now. Didn't know it was that many. Yeah, I could use some more. Now, I'm going to ask people to subscribe on a condition that you come back. Don't just subscribe saying, oh, I want to help Whitcomb, I will subscribe. No, that's not helping. If you subscribe and then watch for my new videos that come out, and then watch some of my old ones, and I've been doing this 2 years just on this channel, Protect Animal Life, and you do that, then it really will help. That kind of subscribing really helps if you come back and watch videos in the future. They're not all live streams. Most of them are not. Most of them are medium short length regular productions that have music background and very carefully. I used to be in professional videography and video production business, and I have background music, and sometimes it'll have my voiceover, and sometimes it won't, just have English text, which is especially good for people from other countries that don't understand my California accent, perhaps. But it'll just be the words on the screen and giving information about particular sightings or particular regions of the country or the world where there are sightings. Sightings are all over the world. All over. And just in the last few months, I have a report from Rome, Italy, right by the Colosseum. Yeah, that old Colosseum in Rome, Italy. It sounds incredible. Whoa, that ancient Colosseum, and we have an ancient pterodactyl flying next to it. They don't pay attention. The animals don't pay any attention to human cultures and ideas. There's pterodactyls flying near Disneyland, or miles from Disneyland, or Hollywood. They'll fly wherever they want to fly. They don't pay attention and say, "Oh, nobody will believe me, and nobody will believe that I'm alive if I fly by Hollywood." People think people are making it up. The animals just fly wherever they want to fly, and so that's that. But many of them are in remote areas, and not quite so shocking to natives in Papua New Guinea. And I give you, that's where I had at my expedition, and a number of other Americans have been on expeditions there too, searching for modern pterosaurs, what people call pterodactyls, flying dinosaurs. That's what we were looking for, and generally we didn't have direct success except with interviewing eyewitnesses. A native in Papua New Guinea, for example, what is frightening to them, what scares a native, is encountering a Ropen because the native is afraid of the animal. What about Americans, like in some rural area in the countryside of Ohio? You see a pterodactyl, what are you scared of? Not the animal generally. You're scared of what your neighbors and friends and family are think about you for seeing a pterodactyl. That's what you're scared of. That is terrifying. That's my phone, and my wife will answer it. So it's just cultural differences, how people approach this. I hope once we get, especially once we get the nonprofit started, that we'll be able to get into helping people in India be more comfortable in reporting their sightings, because India has close to 1 billion people, 1,000 million people in India, and yet we rarely get a sighting report from there because there's just the cultural reasons. I don't know. It's just we need to have somebody that'll help us to get in touch with people in India and get sightings. Also, China, the same thing there. There's more than 1 billion people in China. Yeah, oven mitts, are they migratory? Have pilots seen them? Yeah. we could get into that too. I could include that in either a week from today or 2 weeks from today about a particular sighting by two plane pilots northwest of Australia. Let me make a note. Two pilots northwest of Australia. Tell you about that, and we'll get some, not too many photos. We don't have the photo of the animal, but we get more details on that, and I can be more precise. Right now, I just have to be talking off the top of my head, and obviously, look at me, I don't have much on the top of my head. But yeah, we can get into that. Airplane pilots, yeah, that does happen. Migratory, it's way too early for us to do anything about talking about migrations. It's just the complexities and problems involved are way, way more than what anybody, I think, could possibly do with coming to any kind of conclusion anywhere about anything like a migration. We just don't have nearly enough information. Some of birds, for example, in North America, they have so many bird watchers that follow where the birds go that we have thousands and thousands and thousands of reports that we can put together. I'm not a bird watcher so much myself, but scientists can accumulate, and they can tell where the migrations are and, how they work. We're no problem like that, which brings up something else. Occasionally, a bird watcher will see a pterosaur, and I know two of them in, was it Ohio? It's in the general area of Ohio, but I'm not positive it's actually in Ohio. They're bird watchers. They were looking for birds, and they saw a gigantic flying creature that was the size of an airplane. Obviously not a bird. No way a bird. And one of them reported it to me. And so this idea that sometimes comes up with skeptics and ignorance, so ignorant. They have no idea of how ignorant they are, but they'll say, well, if there were really pterosaurs still living, bird watchers would report them. And no bird watcher's ever seen one. You see, just such ignorance that some of the skeptics have. Why in the world would somebody think that no bird watcher has ever seen a modern pterosaur? Why? Because it's not in the newspapers, it's not officially discovered. We could have a whole live stream just of newspaper reports over the decades of modern pterosaurs in newspapers. And that's complicated. Let me make another note on this. There's so many things we need to get into. We're going to keep doing these live streams late or mid-afternoons on Fridays. I hope every Friday we can do this. I hope we can just keep on doing it all at about the same time. But newspaper accounts of modern pterosaurs, there are quite a few of those. Quite a few in the United States. And a few of them are because of me, because I contacted a newspaper and so on. But others are not have anything to do with me. They're just people report them. And yeah, we have to be sure we understand. I can tell you a lot of things about where people have seen them, what direction it's flying, but that generally doesn't help to establish migrations, for example. And I know I've told you this before if you've been here. Forgive me, but in Arkansas, a number of years ago, a teenage girl was there standing over a cliff with her father, and she was tossing down little pebbles over the cliff. One of them hit something unexpectedly, and out below them, right below their feet, flew this huge pterodactyl that came down and glided off, I think it's to the left if I remember, off and made a turn out there, and they were shocked, thinking they were the only people on the planet who've ever seen a modern pterosaur. Of course, they're just one of hundreds of thousands, but anyway, it was exciting. But that pterosaur was flying in that way because it probably got a pebble knocked on its head, and it was just trying to get away. And it had nothing to do with any kind of migration or anything like that. Be careful about this ideas, migrations. Okay, Big Yak. I'll be here if I'm home from work. I got finished with work early today. Oh, great. Big Yak, 35. Super. And if people have an idea, I can possibly do more than one live stream a week. If there's another time that's really good with a number of people, we could do another one. We certainly have enough material here that I've accumulated over the last 17 and a half years. I believe we can do lots of live streamings and get lots of participation and get lots of ideas from how to approach this. What we might do to encourage people to be aware, to report their sightings. That's one of the reasons why we need a nonprofit, to encourage the public, that people, if they see what seems to be a pterosaur, will report it, and then let the experts decide the probability approximately of whether they saw a pterosaur or not, and we can come to some general conclusion about it. I don't believe that everything somebody sees that's strange is necessarily a pterosaur. I've had 3 sightings myself, just in Utah where I live now. 3 sightings just in the last 7 years. Not one of them was a good sighting. Could be none of those were of a pterosaur. They might have all, 2 of them might have been birds. One of them could have been just a particular, I get my mind in another direction. It's this common bird. We see them every few weeks. We see these birds. It could have been that, but I didn't get a good view. Another one was a very high altitude bird that was making a very strange call. It could have been just a bird. Another one was at nighttime, which it could have been something else. So I need to be honest and admit, I have never had a good sighting of anything like a pterosaur. Even in my expedition in Papua New Guinea, I didn't. I've been searching different parts of western United States, going exactly where people say they've seen a pterosaur, and I go there, but it's sometime later, perhaps, and it's just nothing there while I'm there, looking up at the sky and looking in the bushes. I'll keep looking. I'll keep going. If somebody says, I saw one over here, and it's not too far from my home, I'll go there and look. I'll keep trying as long as I'm still alive and I'm still kicking and healthy. Streams start early for a lot of people. Might get more interaction at a later hour. Just my guess. Well, that's something to consider. I do seem to be getting some traffic here. Let me right now go to my web browser, see what we have. It's a typical number here. We got good numbers. It's gone down very slightly from 50 minutes ago, but let's keep on going. Any other questions we have? There's it sounds strange that we don't have photos or videos, that people are just generally just totally in shock. What do pterodactyls do in the winter? They just do perhaps not necessarily anything very differently. They're sometimes seen in the winter in cold climates, like even in many parts of the United States, not necessarily Florida. They can be up north in the United States, and they could still be seen in cold weather. I can't explain all this. They're seen more often, I should say, in warmer weather. I should say that. I don't have exact statistics, but I'm just giving you what's off the top of my head. I don't have statistics, but in general, they seem to be more often reported in warmer weather. But that could also be because people are outside. Humans are outside more in warm weather. That might be it, or part of it. But they don't all migrate or hibernate all the time in cold weather and in cold places like Canada and northern United States. They're occasionally seen in daytime, even though they're nocturnal animals, in winter in cold areas when the temperature is cold. Maybe they have to do a lot of eating of meat and fish all the time to keep their body temperature up. I don't know. They might have a way of protecting themselves somewhere in a cave or something. Certain caves have a tendency of having a more moderate kind of an average temperature, you know, deep in a cave. So you can get some protection from very cold weather in caves. And I don't have statistics to give you in particular, but some deeper caves are just, even if the temperature is -10 or -20 a particular day in the winter in northern United States or Canada, deep in a cave, the cold air might not get there that much. I don't have any precise numbers to give you, but in general that can happen. Okay, what do pterodactyls do in the winter? Yeah, we got that. Okay. And or underpasses and storm channels. Yeah, in Los Angeles, of course, we don't have really a real winter there. I lived most of my life in Los Angeles County, and now that I'm in Utah for years, I can really appreciate it. We don't have winter in Los Angeles, except way up in the higher mountains. You know, the mountains around Los Angeles, of course, is different, higher elevation. Yeah, and we had a whole live stream. Now, if I can just get over to my browser here, it won't bother what you're looking at here. Just let me get to a live stream on my browser so I can see it myself. The name of the video is Pterodactyls in Los Angeles Storm Channels. This is a popular one. Hundreds of people have seen this. This is on my channel, Protect Animal Life. Pterodactyls in Los Angeles Storm Channels. Pterodactyls in Los Angeles Storm Channels. I recommend this live stream with that name. It goes into details more about the Ropens that travel through the storm channels at nighttime in Los Angeles County. Strange as it may seem, even if it's close to Hollywood, where they make movies about things like dinosaurs and pterodactyls. That's where they fly at night. Not necessarily every night, I'm not saying that. But at least some of these flying creatures, the Ropens, I believe, they do fly on some nights in some of these storm channels, at least some of the time. So, yeah, and Big Yak 35, correct, no winter in San Diego, so that is true. Even further south than Los Angeles. No real winter. When I go home to visit, I'm going to get pictures for you. It is so overgrown with plants, you would think it was natural, but my mom said they were made back in the 1950s and before. Oh, probably the storm channels, yeah. Well, interesting, because I've had so many sightings. Well, I wouldn't say that. I've had a number of sighting reports I've received of modern pterosaurs in the San Diego area, a number of them. Yeah, I can't ignore it, and I can't pretend like it's just not important. It is important. I believe entirely Big Yak 35. By the way, your real name is Lawrence? Big Yak 35 Lawrence? Okay. I think that's your real name. Storm channels, yeah. Luminescence. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Amamis Niños. Luminescence. Yeah, bioluminescence is a good point. And we may have, yeah, there, sir, yeah. Bioluminescence is something produced by living things. Yes, Lawrence. Okay, thank you, Lawrence. I hope we can get in touch by email. I don't know offhand if I have a live stream video that covers bioluminescence very much. I have some of it covered. That's a huge subject. You could have a whole live stream on that, but I might have already done one of the live stream on that sometime earlier this year. I'd have to check. I can make a note. Doesn't hurt to make a note I don't take many mental notes either, because a mental note is not worth the paper it's written on. Bioluminescence in a live stream. We'll consider that. So I can have the material. I like to have the material here, you know, where I can show you things like pictures, and I can show you this cool image here where the teenagers are spray painting the wall with a picture of a pterosaur. This is a trick video, and I'll show you different things, not necessarily tricky things like this, but these people here that are around here talking about the artwork that's behind this man in the black shirt. They're just actors. This is just something I was rigged up for promoting modern pterosaurs. But I can get you some images like this and show you different pictures and so on, and different video like of the bats here, or books like of the my book, The Bible of Modern Pterosaurs, which is my largest book. It's the one I recommend the most for people that are very serious about this subject, because I believe it's the largest book in the world on this particular subject, way over 300 pages. And it sounds like it's a religious book. It has maybe 2 pages or so, more or less, about the Bible and its relationship with sightings and people that look for them, but mainly it's cryptozoology. And Searching for Ropens, Finding God is now in the 4th edition, and it's available online. Amazon or other online dealers, book dealers have. It's a nonfiction. This is a true story of how I started my expedition, what got me involved in this whole thing of just going around the world looking for modern flying dinosaurs, you know, how I got involved with it, my findings with what I've learned from my many years of research. Yes, I'd recommend this first. It's not the only book I've written. I've also written Live Pterosaurs in America, which is in its 3rd edition. Also this for children. Oh, I can't show it like that because I guess because it's blue. But it's you see that it disappears right there, and you see just that part of the book. You don't see all the book. It's a blue book. I have a blue panel behind me for a blue screen. If I was wearing a blue shirt, you wouldn't see my body, you'd just see my head. And anyway, let's get back to the chat. Please make a note that is new to me. Yeah, okay, bioluminescence, yeah. Definitely we need to talk about that, and I need to have more things prepared in the images and the videos and photos and so on, so that you have some more to look at rather than just looking at me and listen to me talking all the time. That's what I saw. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to wrap it up now. It's been almost 2 hours. Appreciate everybody being here. We're going to have more live streaming. We're going to have there's something here. We're going to be involved with this and try to invite more people to participate. Thank you so much for being here. Please come back. I want to do this more and get in more. Think of a question. Bring it to us. Anything else you've learned or want to share with us, or know somebody else you know that had a sighting? You know, let's get this done. But for now, good night. Have a happy Easter. Get to